Absolutely. So what she had said was that if she breaks a resident's confidentiality, she's breaking trust too, right? Yeah, absolutely. And we are all, as providers, people who cultivate safety, right? And that's what confidentiality is. We cultivate safety. And so the truth is, guys, there is no one size fits all to a lot of this, and so that's why we've got 4 different people with 4 different perspectives and 4 different types of programs up here and how they handle some of this. Now, before we jump into this, guys, there were a lot of the questions that we were going to ask today actually came from some of our members, whether it's some of y'all here in the room or some of our folks on Zoom. So when you guys get those little check-ins from us to let you know about the member meetings, there's always a section that says, like, hey, this is our topic. Do you have any questions that you would like to get answered? There were some amazing questions that came on this survey for this training today. So I just want to encourage people to continue to use that. We're going to try to save a little bit of time at the end for you guys to ask some questions. But in the future, if you definitely are like, hey, man, this is a great topic that I would love to get an answer to or a question answered to, please make sure that you put in the surveys for when we get here. So, before, I guess what we will open up with is, can you tell us about a time where confidentiality was either jeopardized or broken, and how it was rectified in your book?
Maybe with the artist.
I actually was the one that broke it. It was an ex-client. I was trying to actually protect a current client, but what happened is we had a client that left, and a couple weeks later, that client's dad called about something unrelated, but while we were on the phone, he kind of broke down a little bit and said, I don't even know where they are, and talked a little bit about that. So fast forward a couple weeks, and we're discharging a client for a relapse, and she's trying to figure out where to go. We're going to let her come back after a separation period, but she's trying to find a safe place to go, and she says, well, I think I'll just go stay with so-and-so. And I said, hey, that might not be a good idea. I was on the phone with that person's dad like a week ago. He said, I don't even know where they are. That's usually not a good sign. Get this nasty text message a couple days later from the ex-client, that I was referencing. And actually, the text was sent to my staff with me copied on it. Staff was the client was thinking that it was them that said it, and I had to actually jump in and say, hey, it was me that did it. We weren't just talking smack about you, right? Because that's what they were implying. I said we were trying to protect a current client from a potentially bad situation, but at the same time, it was a mistake, and I'm sorry because we did breach your confidentiality. So I don't know. Other than just admitting fault, right? As an ex-client, there wasn't a whole lot we could do to rectify it at the time, but it was definitely, like I said, it was a mistake. It shouldn't have happened. It probably, that was an ex-client that I don't think was ever probably going to come back anyway, but it probably didn't look good to the current client who was looking at coming back right after her separation period. Especially the way she spun it when she presented it to that person, right? When it happened, it was genuinely looking out for her, but the way it got relayed, which is I'm guessing the way she saw it, was that we're just talking badly about this ex-client. So yeah, that's a recent example that I've had to deal with, and it was 100% me that made the mistake, not any of my staff or anything like that. So as owner-operators, we're not perfect.
Thank goodness for that. I'm Cindy. I'm with Recovery and Restoration Ministries. I'm the office manager and administrator. And how we handle confidentiality is everything that is said in the group or in the house, what's done in the house, the families that visit, and all of those things is confidential. However, if a client shares with someone else an issue that's going on in the house, and we receive a call or a text or whatever it might be, an email, that is referencing something that I know it was held in confidentiality because, and they're aware that because you spoke it to someone else, you opened it up for conversation. And honestly, I don't think that we've had a whole lot of issues with confidentiality at our place. Everyone's so far has been pretty respectful. I can't think of one in particular incident where we really had to come down on anybody or, you know, or anything like that. We regard confidentiality very highly, and they sign paperwork with pen and paper, unlike One Step. And they are very much aware that breaking confidentiality has, I mean, they could be dismissed depending on how bad the breach may be.
I'm Andrea with River. I was trying to think of one of the examples of how something like that happened, and what incident I thought about was when we had a resident record one of our groups and send it out. We do have a rule and policy that those are confidential. We don't have audio recording on those. Phones are not allowed in groups. We have a phone location on our property that they're supposed to be putting in that group, those groups, because it's that important. I did end up terminating that resident because it violated every other resident's rights. They reported myself and everybody in that group, and it was a trauma group. That kind of taught the house exactly how important I find privacy for the clients. We also do a lot of examining our own policies when it comes to staff, and we do go over policy and how to follow that policy by training. We recently had a lady show up at our doorstep asking if this was, you know, is this so-and-so, is this place, because I have a friend that's coming to treat me. And everybody is aware that we're supposed to say, I cannot confirm or deny that I know that person. And sometimes staff forgets to do that. You know, so my staff called me and she was like, hey, this lady came up to the property and said that this person that we're supposed to do an intake with is supposed to come, and I forgot and said, yeah. And so I was like, you need to go tell that client. You need to go tell that client immediately that you did that, and make sure that there's not any issues that are going to backfire us. Because just like our residents, we need to be held accountable for our own mistakes and rectify and make amends if needed. Which it didn't. There was no backlash. It was really her friend, and she was giving her a ride from work release to go drug screen before she came into treatment. And she ended up filling out an ROI, but before that ROI was in place, the staff had confirmed that she was coming to treatment, which is a CFR 42 Part 2 violation. So I think for me, how we handle that is we train. We train with policy. If your program has a policy and it's not working, revamp your policy and retrain. The residents, you go over that when you sign, or it's mine, they go over that when they sign the handle. We go over it again every Wednesday in our house meeting about how important it is and how this is a vulnerable population. And respect. Like, I have 3 things that I will terminate immediately. There is no, I'm not working with you, and that's bringing drugs or alcohol on property, intimidations or threats of violence, which is respect, lack of respect, or falsifying the drug screen. I will not give it any more chances. You can relapse, but you can't bring it back and put everybody else at risk of relapse. But that's just my program, and that's how I do it.
So, you can imagine, our ministry houses right at 100 men right now. And we're very much out in the public face. So, it doesn't really matter where you go, somebody's going to know somebody here. But when we're approached with that situation, they might ask, we don't really have a big problem with this. Part of it's because of the way our staff is set up and the way our internships are set up and the people we have. When somebody approaches us, we always go to the person above us. We don't have the right to say anything. We don't say anything. We allow that to be taken up with somebody at higher payroll, like yes, you might say. But, you know, as for myself, you know, I'm in education here. And so I get to see the new guys every day when they come in. And there's a lot of times we have a lot of people that ask them and they call. And sometimes, you know, their number might slip through to my phone number. And they're calling, I'm just like, well, you know, I can't really answer that. We're going to leave that to administration. And I just send them to administration where it can be dealt with properly. Another thing we really try to do as best we can is phones. Okay, so our students don't have phones. Our staff does. Our leaders do at a certain level. And we have certain groups that we'll speak on certain topics in. And they only house a certain amount of men that pertain to that thing. So everything's pretty much isolated. And everything is watched over. And we're very open with each other. Our program is very open, honest, transparent with everybody. That's accountability. I believe everybody in our program that runs our program are also graduates, or they've been down that way. So we're very, very careful on how we approach any situation.
Awesome, thank you so much, guys. Next question. How do you, as an individual or as a facility, handle communication and confidentiality between law enforcement agencies and other government entities such as DFACS, accountability courts, or even the specific scenario of law enforcement is looking for someone in your program and they have a warrant? How do you handle such situation?
David with the Arches again. So on intake, we have our clients sign a confidentiality agreement that details, you know, exactly what circumstances we're going to talk to anyone about them under, right? Those things are, we share information amongst staff, right? You know, so that's covered right off the bat. In fact, that's even mentioned on 2 of our intake documents that we do share information amongst staff, and you're giving us permission to do so. Second being if there's an ROI in place. Third being a court order, which a warrant's going to qualify as a court order. Fourth being medical personnel needed in the event of an emergency. And fifth being you threaten to harm yourself or someone else, and we have to have you 1013, right? So on intake, the client is acknowledging that we are going to talk to people about them under any of those circumstances. So when it comes to like law enforcement, right, if they don't have a warrant, I'll keep my mouth shut unless there's an ROI, right? If it's that person's probation officer and they've signed an ROI for me to, you know, provide them reports, then I'll talk to them. If it's just a random police officer snooping around, I don't know what you're talking about unless you've got a warrant. But yeah, for most of those situations, DFACS or anything like that, we're going to handle it with ROIs. So. Release of information.
So I guess just like David, we have all of those same policies in place where they sign, they know that their information could be shared with medical personnel or probation officers or anything like that. Usually, I have found that I usually find out that there's a warrant before anyone comes knocking at our door. And so we give the client the option to either turn themselves in, we'll take them, we'll turn them in, we'll see how we can handle the warrant. If they decide to do that and they are actually incarcerated, we will, once you know that the warrant is satisfied, then we will go and pick them back up and bring them in, and it just starts fresh, and we let them know that we're there for them all the way through the process. And, you know, cleaning up the wreckage of our past is part of recovery. It's part of living life responsibly. So we really do encourage that. And we've had quite a bit of success in talking with them about that. And then there's others that says, no, we find out that they weren't even allowed to cross state lines and they're using our place to hide somebody, and it's like right back out the door. You know, I just let them know, you cannot be here. We can either, you can go back or we can call someone. We can, you know, walk you in if that's what you need, but you cannot stay here because, you know, you don't have permission from you know, the authorities that you're under. Also, our director has a tendency to joke with the guys that, you know, he'll answer the front door and you can run out the back door. Fortunately, that hasn't happened, but it is an option for them because they're the ones who have to clean it up, you know, and we, you know, we're honest with them. We're there to help them and encourage and support them. We have one gentleman right now that violated his probation that's incarcerated now for a little bit of time, a couple more months. And, you know, we do things probably not like we should, but we send him money and, you know, we accept his phone calls and do things like that just to let them know that, yes, we're going to stand by our word. We are going to help you through this process, and you have a place to come back to when you've settled that.
I think they pretty much covered everything, but a release of information, if you don't have one, Todd over there can provide you a template that you can create for your own program. If you don't have a confidentiality policy, Todd over there has a template for that too. That should be part of your program in all capacities. I do think one that was new to me, yeah, they do show up and knock on the door. They do. I get my residents, if they are on any type of probation or pretrial or anything like that, I require them to do a blanket release of information because probation officers change so frequently that if they are on felony probation, we do an ROI for the Department of Community Supervision, not that probation officer. The reason why is because we have one that had 6 probation officers in 6 months. Misdemeanor probation, same thing. You do it for the probation company instead of the probation officer because they have a turnover. I had an investigator call one time for a former client, and my release of information has a time frame of when it expires after they leave. I have to adhere to that, and I had to tell that gentleman, I cannot confirm or deny that the picture you're sending me is of any resident I've ever had. Those of you who do have clinical supervisors, utilize your clinical supervisor because stuff is going to come up that you don't know how to handle. And if you don't have a clinical supervisor, find a mentor that has been doing this for a while, that's figured out how to do it, that can show you how to do it. Anybody who's brand new, find a buddy. Find a buddy in this field because you can't do this by yourself. So release of information, confidentiality agreements, they're there for a reason, and train. Plug, right?
As far as the legal side of stuff like that coming in, we have policies in place. As a matter of fact, our director, he heads that department up, and he's very good at what he does. However, if you are suited in a better way, and something comes up, you will be encouraged to train yourself in. And if you don't, you will not be allowed to stay here. However, in saying that, we're not going to take you down and drop you off with you. We're going to take care of you. You're still part of the family. And we'll do everything and everything we can as long as you're doing what you can.
Next question. How do you handle keeping clients' information secure and confidential amongst your staff. So let me give a brief scenario. If you have to text your staff member about a certain client, they need to text you about a certain client, what is the policy and procedure in your facility around how that communication must exist?
That's probably one we're not doing so great at because we use text messaging, right? They do sign that release saying that we can share information amongst staff. The method that we're using is probably not the most secure, but yeah. And we do have one step for like client documents and stuff like that, but when it comes to just like day-to-day conversation, we're using the phone and the text messaging.
For us, I'm not a big computer person to begin with, and I certainly do not like texting. And so we do a lot of our communication face-to-face. I may send a text and say, hey, we need to have a discussion, come see me, or something of that nature. But as far as an issue going on with a client, I never text any kind of information like that through text. It can be, as we all know, text can be read in all kinds of mindsets and interpreted differently than what is sent. So we make it a policy not to put any of our clients' names in text messages if we are texting, and just make sure that we have a face-to-face conversation. And most of the time, if it is about a client, we have the client present as well. So I never want our clients to feel like they're being spoken about behind their back. We have a great trust that we try to build with them, and it lasts long after they've left, and they keep coming back to help serve or give back to the new men that are in the program. And that's because we do hold their names, even through text and among staff and others, that confident.
I could probably do this better as well. I do have business cell phones that have encrypted text messages. We do staffing every Wednesday, so we do staffing with all staff. I still have staff that doesn't have access to my client files, and that's just because they haven't earned that privilege yet. Everything is behind these 2 locks. All resident files are behind 2 locks. The door, the passcode on the computer, and then another lock on that. That way, when you have a resident who wants to break in, they into the office, they would still have to get through several locks before they can access those residents' files. But technically, there's probably some really creative ways that I'm not thinking about, but I text a lot. Not full names. So maybe that's a little better. I could probably do better on that one. I'm not perfect either. Working hard.
So as far as privacy policies and files, stuff of that nature, we're very strict. We're very strict guidelines put in place. Those files are locked behind certain doors. Only certain people are allowed to go near those files, period. As far as texting goes, however, we do use phones quite a bit for different things. When it's something personal, we do not use a phone. We might call somebody or text somebody, have them brought to the office or sent to the office, or something like that, but everything's done face to face. I would suggest that anyways, because like everybody said, a text message can be very long, very long.
No, the one thing I wanted to highlight that was already said was, if we are going to put stuff in a text message about a client, nothing that is truly identifying. Okay, so our company's policy is either first name only or initials, but no full name, and there's never an appropriate time to be like, hey man, this is this guy's birthday, this is his social security number, because that's all stuff that we need, right? Gather information from our residents. Don't text that. Just don't do it. Final question for you guys. What is your policy, or how do you handle having pictures of your residents taken and put onto social media platforms or your website? If you're going to actually take pictures of your residents getting sober and having an amazing time and all that stuff, how do you handle putting that on any of your media platforms?
So it's not one that I've had to deal with yet. It's one that I'm going to have to deal with here coming up pretty soon because we're about to be starting to try to do some work on our website. But I know that we do, one of the documents we have in One Step is a media release form, right? But I purchased my program. I didn't start it. Purchased it from Todd about 20 months ago. And all the pictures on the website currently are the ones that he put up with media release forms prior to my purchasing it. So like I said, we're about to be doing some work on it. So it's a bridge I'm about to have to cross, but to date I have not posted a picture of any of my clients. So
We too also have a media release form that they sign. We also ask their permission, even though they've signed the paper. It may be, something that's come up after that, where now all of a sudden they do mind if their photo is out there or something. So we always physically ask their permission. Can we take your photo? Can we put it online? Can we use this in our newsletters or whatnot? And we have not had any issues as far as that. I mean, there's been clients that just said, no, I don't want my picture taken. I don't want to be in any pictures. And we make sure that that person's not in any pictures. We don't use their name or anything about them in any type of social media or anything else.
We also have media release, but I have a personal belief where I refuse to post a picture of a resident on social media. And even though I have that release, I have the right to, but my personal morals at this time permit me. And I highly aware that I would probably have some great marketing material, but I believe that they have the right to recover on the way they see fit without everybody knowing. And I'm okay with y'all doing that if that's what you choose. I'm not saying you're doing anything wrong. I'm just saying my personal belief system prevents me from being able to do that right now. And financially, I'm okay with that. So I do post pictures with my residents once in a week with their faces covered, just for privacy for them. Like a emoji smiling face. Because I was in no way, shape, or form ready to be an example of recovery or early recovery. So that's that.
So here's a better way. We do have releases and stuff that they sign when they come in. However, we have a minister full of movie stars. There's something about a clean smile and a bright face. But it is noted, and every time somebody comes in, they're told that this is what this is. It's going to be filmed. This is what we do. For us, it's the ministry, and that's part of the ministry, is creating that smile. We do have the releases. And if somebody says, not me, which I've never heard that, maybe usually the person in front of the camera, but then that would be taking note. It would be kept secret.
That's our last question.
Yes, it was. So I'd like to thank you guys. So here's the deal, guys. Confidentiality, as we said in the beginning, it cultivates safety. And if you are not trying to continue to cultivate safety in your program, I highly suggest finding another field to work in. Truth is, this is something that we are going to constantly revisit, constantly be tightening up on. My suggestion is if you have a policy and procedure manual, even if you've been using it for years, break it out once a year. Run through it. Make sure that you still believe in the language that you wrote for yourself and your company. Because I noticed that for me and my personal recovery journey, it looks different every single year. And the things that I believed in 5 years ago and what I believe today are drastically different. And what I want recovery to look like for me personally and what I want recovery to look like for other people. So please, don't be stuck in your ways. Break out that PMP manual. Start to challenge yourself. Learn from the people around you and how they do it. We're all trying to figure this out as we go, guys. But how we're going to figure it out is by continuing to examine ourselves and the people around us and going, hey, am I doing the right thing? Am I cultivating safety for the people that I serve? So, with that, I want to thank you guys for being here today. But before we go, I'm going to be Todd Wilson today and say, we're all going to go just right out that front door. And then everybody's going to leave. All right? So it's going to be one time. If we get it.